Are you listening? Damn. Yeah. Yeah.
So, another episode of Trash Talk. I'm TJ O'Connor. With me, as always, Damian the Wolverine Hill. Trash Talk is joined tonight by Zak the Barbarian Ottow, co-owner of Pura Vida Fight Team and current UFC fighter. But first, God damn it. Trash Talk is brought to you by our sponsors, Valhalla Combat Sports Incorporated, Ink Shrinks Tattoo, Origin Wellness CBD, Spartan Martial Arts, the Striking Institute, James Clark Sports Psychology and Hypnosis Therapy, The Fighters, and my mom. Zak, how are you doing tonight, sir? Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, doing good, guys. Good to see some people and not be so isolated.
Yeah. Thank you for taking the time with us. And as you could see from the intro, or I guess the second or third intro, whichever one that was, people watching won't know. But
Yeah.
Trash Talk is professionally unprofessional. And I'm glad that you took the time to talk with us too right now over Skype, and to all the other fighters and coaches listening right now. The news is telling us that everybody that the Skype interviews and interactions with people is actually good for the mental health. So if you got something to say, reach out to us. We would love to talk to you. But we're talking with you tonight, Zak. How are things been going for you, I guess, in this quarantine situation right now?
Obviously, the gym is closed. We've been closed since middle of March. So, man, it seems like forever. I can't wait to get back to, a normal life. But also, the shows are going to be, we run a promotion, regional promotion around Wisconsin, and, that's going to be held off for a little bit as well. So it's just given me a little opportunity to catch up on some other things that I'm involved in, and get some projects done that I needed to that had been put off for a little while. And then, of course, at the gym and technology, we've been able to get some content out online, which we've always been wanting to do, and this is kind of forcing us to do that. So forcing us to grow a little bit, and hopefully we can keep using that going forward. So just trying to adapt and, go with the flow here. Everybody's hurting, so we'll make it through.
Yeah, well, I've seen some of the videos, or at least the previews for some of the videos, and yeah, I'm glad that you guys are actually able to still stay in contact with your with the guys that you're training and coaching, and able to still stay pretty active yourselves, and I guess thinking of all of those things that you want to show to the fighters and make the demonstration videos is keeping your mind in the fight game as well, So that's really good to hear, and I guess while all of this stuff is going on, I mean, I guess we've interviewed Jake Clip before, your partner at Pura Vida, and he's talked to us, and one of the things that he's expressed to us in the interview that we did with him is that he doesn't feel like you get enough credit as a coach because you're still an active fighter. With these videos that you guys have been posting and sending out to all the fighters, do you feel like more people are starting to see you as, and not even just the team, because obviously I don't know what goes on in the gym, but on the outside perspective, do you think more people are starting to realize how good of a coach that you actually are? And I mean, because it's the activity of a fighter kind of overshadows themselves as a coach because you're still active as a fighter. No one thinks of it that way. Do you think that more people are starting to think of you that way? And is that something that you care about?
Oh man, good question. I mean, I really don't give a shit what other people think. So I mean, I'm not out there trying to impress anybody. I'm just trying to, I care about my fighters, and I'm trying to give them the best look possible, whether that's me physically grappling or punching them in the face at practice, or if that's me teaching a class, cornering them in the corner. I mean, we've cornered so many fights over the last decade. I'm not being, to brag or anything. I think we're really the best corners out there. And, I just care about results, man. I don't really care about what people think. Whether, a coach or a fighter or whatever else is the first thing that pops in their head when they hear my name. I just care about, making champs. And after that, you know, even if you can't make a champ, if you can, there's going to be a lot of people, I think, in this game that I'm going to have influence on, that whether it's make a lot of money and teaching them how to use that money correctly and not blow it, or whether it's having a platform where they can have a major influence and making sure that they do that appropriately, effectively. You know, there's a lot of influence that you can have in the sport, and that's what I care about. You know, the Montels and the O'Days and the Leoletsons and stuff. But I really don't care about anyone else.
Dude,
See, no,
I
that's
love it.
great.
I love
Yeah.
it.
I love it. And the thing that took away from that, like you said, is results matter. And I mean, and people that watch the show, I mean, we talk about all the time. I mean, you guys are known for winning fights, quite pretty plain and simple. The Trash Talk rankings are littered with the amateurs from Pura Vida. I mean, obviously the up and coming pros. You mentioned some of the people currently signed into the UFC, as well as yourself. What is it about the culture of the gym between yourself, Jake, and Solo that you guys bring that the energy just feeds and creates these champions?
I think fighting is our focus, and that sounds stupid, but like you'd be surprised. I think at a lot of other gyms, like they're there to just kind of like fuck off and like maybe party or something, or like everyone here. Not everyone. Of course, we have cardio kickboxing classes and stuff. You know what I mean? But like, but even that, like everyone's really trying to better themselves, and especially the fight team. Like everyone has really high goals, and no one is like selling themselves short. Like, oh, I just want to have like an amateur fight and that's it. Like something about the culture here, everybody has like this super lofty goal in their head that they want to accomplish. So you get all those people together and nobody's like just trying to get to space. Like everybody's trying to go to like the furthest star, you know what I mean? It like that culture helps. And then also just like we don't run our school like a dictatorship. Like this is how you have to do this. Like don't throw your jab like that. I told you to throw it like this. Like we realize that depending on who you are, maybe your anatomy or you know your personality, everybody's got a different fighting style, and being like, hey, I think that'll work for you, but you know, kind of tweak this or leave it. Like I like how you do it like that. Well, no one else is doing it like that in the gym. No, that's fine. It works for you.
Yeah.
You know? So there's no like reprimanding and you can't. There's other gyms where like it's like a cookie cutter. They're just stamping
Yeah.
in fighters, and you could look at a silhouette of a fighter and be like, "Oh, that guy fights out of that gym." You can't do that with us. Like everybody's got their own style.
Oh my God. So one of the things that I think of when you were saying that is Dominic Cruz or even Tony Ferguson. Those are two guys that have some really good striking, but I would never teach that. I would never be
Yeah.
like, hey, do this, do that, you know. But for them, I would never tell them to stop. It's perfect for them, you know, and it takes a good coach to recognize that. And one of the things that I feel like you guys do, you said that no one's looking at it like, oh, I just want to try this out. I just want to see if I'll be good. Everyone's goals are much further than that. One of the things that I've noticed, and I've said it in previous interviews with guys from Pure Vita, is that when you guys walk into the room, it feels like you guys are controlling it. You guys have an aura about you where you guys are like, hey, we're Pure Vita. What's up? And take it or leave it. And it's just like you guys come in there and you guys own the show almost every time you guys put fighters on a card. And I think TJ spoke on it when he's saying like, what is the atmosphere? How does it translate from the gym into the fighting? How does it translate from the coaching or the coach's perspective into seeing all of you guys have as much confidence as you do in them?
Yeah, and a lot of it comes from the fighters themselves, right? I mean, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. So we've been really blessed to have some good leaders on the team. Maybe they're not the best fighters, but you make them feel valued in a way that they stick around, and then their leadership maybe helps the more talented guys like reach their potential. So everybody's got a part on the team. You know, I mean, some realize it, that they're not going to be a UFC champion, but yet they still feel like they have a very important role on the team, and I think that helps too.
Man, that was perfect. I don't have a follow-up question. I love that. I love that answer.
No, exactly. And I mean, just kind of getting back to you a little bit, what, for the fans that aren't as aware, what was your initial transition into fighting? I mean, we know of your background in athletics, obviously, playing football, but what led to the change to competing in mixed martial arts?
I had to stop street fighting, and
Yeah.
oh man, I might be honest with you guys. Give you some.
Well, yeah. I
Well,
yeah.
that not a lot of people. I hope my aunt doesn't hear this. Yeah, I got 2 disorderly conduct tickets within like a 4-month time period, and I was like partying all the time, and like not that I was the instigator at the bar,
Yeah.
but I
Never
wouldn't
back down.
you know. So, oh man, it was like I had like this itch to just want to compete still. I was still always working out, you know, from a early childhood. My dad was very much into fitness and, you know, got me working out, and that helped with my athletics, a strong strength and conditioning program. So I always stuck with that. And my numbers were going up in the gym, and it was like, man, I can do all this stuff, but all I can apply it is like on this dumbbell, and that's kind of lame to me. So I was getting, you know, like I said, just situations, and I knew I had to like compete or do something, and I went to a local regional show. Uh, just make a long story short, I went to a local show. It really wasn't like watching the UFC on TV that got me super interested. It was a local show of MMA, and I was like, man, I can whoop all these dudes' asses. Like, get out of here. So then watching where Emelianenko got me inside. He got me more excited about getting to that level more than like the Chuck Liddells and Tito Ortiz's and stuff. I wasn't really into them. And yeah, so when I decided, okay, I'm going to start with jiu-jitsu first because I heard that that's a pretty complicated martial art, and you know, it's winning. Obviously, like the early UFCs, it was the martial art to know, right? So
Yeah.
I had wrestled in high school. Grappling was something that interested me, so I thought, okay, I'll start with doing jiu-jitsu, but really, like, I want to learn MMA. So my first jiu-jitsu class was, you know, learning a rear naked choke, and under Henry Matamoros in Bayview, and I went in learning that choke, thinking like, okay, like this is a good choke I can use in my first MMA fight. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So did you have a wrestling background at all?
Yeah, I didn't start wrestling until I got to high school.
Okay.
I did like a tournament in 8th grade without ever, like, all I knew was one practice of a double leg. And I did well in the tournament, and then I wanted to do basketball, but my dad was like, "You're never going to be over 6 feet tall." I'm
Yeah.
5, and he's like, "You play all these team sports, and sometimes the teams suck, and then the whole year sucks. You know, like, why don't you do something individual?" And I was like, yeah, I'll give it some thought. And then as we got football season ended, and I had to make a choice, I was like, nah, I'm going to go for wrestling. So
Oh.
I started wrestling in high school. Um, won conference, won regionals twice, sectionals, went to state, and all that. But um, it was always like a second sport to me. I was always much more dedicated to football. I never
Yeah.
thought I was going to have to go back and use those skills again.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I brought up the wrestling is because I'm like, I knew you had to have had a wrestling background. One, I heard it previously, and then two, you're so dominant when you have top control. And then I guess with the football being your main sport or your main mindset at the time, you played football for the Air Force Academy, which is a pretty big fucking deal. Uh, how did that translate in? I mean, not translate into fighting, but how did how did that even get into it? And then I guess did you see yourself while you were playing football even going over towards MMA at the time, or? I mean,
Okay, so when I was in high school, very committed to football. Team won the state championship, a real dominant program at Wisconsin Lutheran. I was an all-state middle linebacker in high school. So again, that was like my focus. So going into college, since seventh grade, I wanted to go to a service academy. So I got accepted to West Point Naval Academy and Air Force, and I wanted to be a pilot. So I went Air Force because that would be the best route to get to pilot training after I graduated.
yeah.
And then they were really interested in me as well for playing football. So first year I played football, it's not like redshirted. They have like a JV squad that does like a whole schedule, and we would go around and play like D2 schools, D1 AA, and JUCOs. And
Okay.
we go to the Air Force Academy is in Colorado, so we every weekend have games in like Arizona or Wyoming or Utah and stuff like that. And then the next year, I made it through football, and then the next year, like I was going to be on varsity. All freshman year, like they're cutting people left and right, like the depth chart's super deep. And I was going to be on varsity my sophomore year, but I just could not stand playing football anymore. So I stopped playing football my sophomore year, and I switched over to rugby. And that was a little bit more of like a party crowd, and they were all like the football rejects.
Hold on.
Yeah.
Another question. Is
Yep.
that when a lot of the street fights started to happen?
You could say that. Yeah. Oh. Actually, yeah. Well, that's when a lot of underage drinking started happening.
Yeah.
And then I got at Air Force Academy is really strict with an honor code and stuff. So I got in some trouble at the Air Force Academy, and I I resigned and I got an honorable discharge, but I couldn't stay.
Oh, yep.
So
I
I got 2 full years in at the academy, got those credits and stuff. But then, after that, one of my good friends was from New York City. So I moved to New York City, and I took an internship at a stock brokerage firm off of Wall Street, and I did that for 8 or 9 months. And then that wasn't really working out. So then I moved back home. I had like zero money or anything, and it's funny. It was like a whole progression of like, I'm going to do this big, but then like failed. And then all right, nah, I'm going to do this big thing and failed. And the whole time, like I'm getting good grades in school and stuff, but I just can't seem to get my shit together, And then, I don't know, once I found MMA, I guess it all changed. I was finishing my degree. I had switched to the health field, and I was figuring out what I wanted to do somewhere in the healthcare industry. But Jake needed a wingman with running the gym, and I wanted to do that. So
good because that sorry.
that was 2012. Yeah.
Man, that was what I was gonna be my next question. How did you get back to Milwaukee and running a gym with Jay Cliff?
After I moved from New York, I didn't have any money, so I moved in with my brother to start, and then started working. I got back into school at UWM, which is where we both went. Finished our degrees there, and then now we teach classes for them. And we were just training partners, fighting more so in the cage, less outside the cage, as we kept training, getting a good head on our shoulders. And then when Henry left to take a teaching job out of state, he left the gym to Jake, and there was another guy named Rob that was involved. And Jake and Rob were running the school. I was helping teach some classes here and there, and then just the three of us were getting each other ready for fights. And then I ended up taking Rob's spot. So I bought him out and became 50-50 owner with Jake. And since then, that's the way it's been. So we've just been progressing forward.
Man, that's a crazy story. And I'm like, this is like, it took years and years for all of that to play out. Yeah. And we got just the cliff notes of the story in this short amount of time. Damn, I feel like there's a whole lot more that we're missing. This is, man.
I think some of the good stories are dug down there, but no, I love it. And I mean, obviously, in fighting, we know guys, whether they're pros or amateurs, you have to have that mindset. You know, I'm going to be in the UFC. I'm going to be one of the best in the world. At what point in your career did it start sinking in? Like, oh no, this is actually a reality. I am one of the best guys in the world, and I'm going to make it to the UFC. Because I remember, I mean, just from my own personal experience, I had the pleasure of watching some of your early fights. It was actually your second pro fight out at Jackpot. I was there live. And then there was a fight for Driller, I think just a couple months later, that we had a chance to see. And to see the progression leading up to your huge win, one of your big knockouts before getting to the UFC against Robbie Gotru, and then obviously the UFC fights. What, as the progression's going, at what point did it really click and go, you know, I'm going to do this?
Oh man. Okay, so when I first started, like I wanted to go to the UFC, and like with what they're getting paid and stuff, I thought like I have like 20 to 30 fights, like I'll have, you know, some in the UFC, and I'll use that money to like help pay for my student loans for like being a doctor, you know. And then the more I got involved in this, the less I like wanted to do the healthcare thing, and the more I just want to do this. And I was like, man, screw a couple fights in the UFC. Like I want to have a whole fucking career there, you know. Like then it was like I want to be champ there, you know. And you know, your goals just kind of keep changing over time. I mean, from the first practice, like, so my intention was like, I'm going to be in the UFC. I don't know how I'm going to get there. There's no like route. I'm not really sure. But we'll figure it out, you know. And then you practice with people, you take training trips, and you know this guy that's like a 10-time UFC vet, and he's got a winning record in the UFC, and like you're doing pretty well against him. It helps give you that confidence. So there were times where I lost, but like the person I lost to is going on and like just killing everybody, and you like had a really close, good fight with them. You just didn't happen to win. That gives you confidence, and you know, slowly like then your goals start to change. By the time I realized like, oh, I'm going to make it to the UFC, my goal wasn't to make it there anymore. It was to become champ. You know what I mean? Like my goal is ahead of like that next step I was taking.
I think Chael Sonnen said it best. He's like, if you're not willing to go too far, then you'll never go far enough. And I feel like anytime somebody is like setting a goal for themselves for the next time, as soon as the next time is done, you start to exceed those goals a whole lot more, you know? Like I remember after my very first amateur fight, I was convinced that I had beat that dude's ass so badly that Dana White was going to send me a message on Facebook that night and be like, hey, you need to go pro. We need you right now. You know what I mean? And after that didn't happen, you think my head got smaller? No, I started thinking like, no, it's even bigger than that. You know, I want more. And I think that's just sorry.
Yeah, to speak on that, like there's no book, there's no way to like, how do you get there, follow these directions, you know. So it was like, yeah, the same thoughts were going through my head, like, well, if I just, you know, finish this guy, like some scout's gonna call me or something, and Dana White's gonna call me, and I'm gonna get a UFC contract, or like I'm gonna fight the toughest guys one after another, I'm gonna beat them all, you know, like that's not always the right way to do it, you know. But no,
exactly. I mean, okay, so your route to actually getting to the UFC, because you had thrown your name in the hat. This is something I had seen in a previous interview before too, is that you had signed with Iridium you're still signed with them, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so you had just signed with them and then started being able to throw your name in the hat for certain filler fights for the UFC. And then eventually you got the call. They said, "Hey Zach, we need you. We want you. Could you come whoop this dude's ass for us?" You did it. And I mean, and I guess, how did that even play out? Like, how did you get the first fight? Because I believe this is in another interview that I had seen of yours where you only had one full camp, or one officially full camp from the reporter's perspective. I don't know the actual details of the fight and everything, but almost every fight you had took on 2 to a week's notice, like, I mean, or pretty short term. I mean, how did that play into getting your UFC contract? And then also, I mean, how does that play into other guys in the future trying to, I mean, when opportunities present themselves, you got to step up, right? I didn't phrase that right, but I think you know what I meant.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, we run into it with our show. Jake does the matchmaking on that, and a lot of these guys can be prima donnas sometimes, and they want a full camp at the exact weight class that they want, and it's like, even at the highest level, it doesn't work like that. Like, I think TJ Dillashaw had to push his wedding back and stuff because it's like, do you want this title fight right now or not? Like,
Yeah,
we're not going to schedule this around you. Like, title fight in 2 weeks, take it or leave it. Like, and that's a world championship title fight. You know what I mean? Like, and if you're not doing that early, now you shouldn't always do that. You shouldn't just take any fight that comes to you. But if you're training relatively healthy and you're feeling confident with the matchup and stuff, like, get in there. Not everything is going to be perfect all the time. Especially when you get that call to the UFC, it's going to be short notice. Unless you're like Adesanya, who's a undefeated, world champion kickboxer, and they want to bring him in, and that guy probably does. I don't think he has a manager. Like, they just talk to him directly. But for anybody else, it's like, you're going to get the call on short notice, and you better be ready. So, yeah, I mean, coming up, pretty much there was coming from Wisconsin. There was 2 ways to do it. Either you move out of state and go to a big gym like Sam Alvey did, or you stay in Wisconsin and you go to Duke's. And I wasn't going to do that either. So in the modern UFC era, it was like never been really done before where I'm from, like just getting yourself there and figuring it out. And, of course, I had Jake and my brother and people along the way that really helped me get my skill level there. But we were all just figuring it out as we went. And I was kind of like the guinea pig, And once we got it figured out and I got there, it's going to be short notice. I was actually cornering for a fight, and I happened to be in a car traveling, and my manager was sitting next to me, and he got a phone call, and it was like one of their fighters, Bobby Green, had to pull out of a fight.
Yep.
And the fight was going to be Bobby Green against Josh Berkman at 155. Well, I guess Berkman was like, either give me a 55er, or because it's such short notice, like, give me a small 170. And my manager was like, yeah, I'm sitting next to a small 170 right now. And, Zak Ottow's ready to go. And he just said yes, without even, he just kind of he's like, you can fight in 2 weeks in the UFC, right? And I'm like, yep. I didn't even know who the matchup was. He's talking on the phone. And he's like, all right. And then he finally gets off the phone, and it's not verified, but my name's in the hat. And I'm like, so who's the matchup? And he's like, Josh Berkman. And at first I'm like, whoa.
Like veteran Josh Berkman. Yeah.
In the fall of 2016, you've been watching MMA for a while, like, this guy was the shit,
Yeah.
And then second, I'm like, but he's a 55, so come to figure out, they gave me the fight at 170, and Berkman was willing to go up to 170 to fight somebody coming in on short notice like that. And from there, with the win, just kept it going. But to clarify on the details, I've had 8 fights in the UFC. I would say probably half have been in 3-week notice or less.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was getting to. Where you're a warrior, dude. You have a warrior spirit, and you're willing to fight anybody at any time. You've proven it time and time again. And I guess one of the things, because you had spoken on it before, where like unless you're in camp training all of the time, like it's not necessarily smart to take short notice fights or fights that just get offered to you. You think it's a good opportunity and things like that. With all of that knowledge that you have gained throughout the 10 years of fighting experience, the over 30 fights that you've had, how do you think that that's going to translate into coaching when you're finally done fighting and coaching is your full-time job? And I mean, dude, there's so much knowledge to have. I feel like I've learned a lot from this interview right now. And fucking, this has only been 30 minutes. Imagine if I talked to you every day.
There's nothing that can substitute for experience, you know. And that's the whole coaching staff, though. Like, we've always had a very busy fight team, even though we haven't always had like tons of UFC fighters and UFC champions and stuff. Like, we've been coaching for a while, and we've always had a decent fight roster. Now that has progressed from mostly amateur to mostly pro over time, but we've been coaching a while, you know. So, like I said, there's no substitute for experience, and I think we bring that from the fight side. Like a lot of the older coaches, I don't know, you could say like a Greg Jackson or somebody, like they haven't really had like that many MMA fights.
No,
You know, they took, they knew their disciplines and they know their stuff, but like the sport's still so young, and I think where we're at, it's like that first wave of retired, experienced fighters that are now coaching.
Oh my God. That's one of the things that I love the most about MMA is that there's so many people in this game that are so talented in multiple facets, like not just fighting itself. They're able to be a manager. They're able to be a promoter. They're able to be reporters like me and TJ. Now, but like it, a lot of I mean, even the UFC is starting to take over. And set the example for. Hey, we want former fighters doing our post-fight analyst speeches, our post-fight interviews with the fighters and stuff like that. It's just like there's an aspect that you get from the first experience that you will never get anywhere else. And I still feel like there's some people that don't understand that, but at the same time, I would never go learn how to fix a car from somebody who is not a mechanic. So I would never go learn jujitsu from somebody who's never competed in it. I would never learn fighting from someone who has never fought. You, sir, have done it and done it at the highest level, the local level, and the amateur level. And there's just so much knowledge to share. I mean, it would be a shame if you didn't. It would be a shame if you didn't become a coach. Sorry, that was.
Appreciate it. And you guys can relate to this too. Like, in early on when we started learning MMA, like, you know, okay, I got to be good at grappling, so let me take grappling classes, and then okay, I got to be good at, you know, boxing, so let me take boxing classes, and then it was kind of like your job to like try to blend this together. And now it's a sport in itself. Like, there's a different kind of striking that works when there's less rules. There's a different kind of grappling that works when I can punch you and elbow you in the face. That doesn't quite work in sport jiu-jitsu. And you know, even a lot of these big gyms that are, you know, still doing well, kind of maybe starting to fall off here, it's based on a lot of coaches that they have a grappling coach and then they have a striking coach. And are they on the same page? Are they blending the stuff together appropriately? A lot of good fighters, it's in the transition between the disciplines. And here you've got people, full coaching staff that, like you said, has been there, done that, and know how that works.
Yeah, like the transitioning, mixing things in is key, I feel like, because I mean, when you take a traditional boxing coach, if they were to break down Dominic Cruz, it's like, yes, everything he does is wrong for traditional boxing, but to say that it's not working, you're blind or you're an idiot or you're lying. You know, it's one of those things. I'm sorry, what did you say?
Numbers don't lie. He doesn't get hit very much.
Exactly. You know, like the elusiveness and the amount of strikes that he lands himself. It's like there's there's something to be said about the MMA striking. Like, yes, it's not traditional boxing. I'm not looking like a traditional boxer, but you do understand that this isn't boxing. Like, I've always felt like it's harder to compete in wrestling when you're just wrestling. It's harder to compete in jiu-jitsu when you're just doing jiu-jitsu. It's harder to compete in boxing when you're just boxing. But when I'm able to mix it all in and kick you in the face and trip, or even just hit your nose like this because it's not fucking illegal, it changes everything. I mean,
Yeah, if I wrestle with a Division One All American wrestler, like he's gonna be probably whooping my ass and take things. But if you just give me the ability, we can jab each other and take each other down now, oh,
Yeah.
it's gonna keep,
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
gets to another point. Sorry, TJ, I knew you were going to say something, but MMA math does not make sense. I've beaten 3 guys and whooped their asses, and then those 3 guys have all beaten a guy that I lost to. This shit does not make sense.
yes, there's so many variables, in MMA, and it's the hardest sport to do sport math with.
You fought Brian Barberino, or you used to train with him, right?
I trained with him quite a bit.
Okay, yeah. I lost the fight to him, and I was like, man, this was such a good fight. I felt like I was doing really good. I lost to him, and then I ended up I can't, TJ, you'd be able to confirm this more. I still don't remember the name of the guy, but I feel like I beat a guy that Brian lost to or was struggling with, and I'm like, but he beat me. Like, this shit does not make it doesn't need to either. I mean, this is a fight game.
Yeah, there's so much that goes into a fight. On any given night, anything can change, and I just really like to talk about like the transitions and how that makes it. Because I mean, we're talking about a fight where literally milliseconds can change the dictate. So if you're working with someone, you could throw that 1-2 and shoot, and he's going, okay, I got a block now, and it's like, so you're playing 2 different games at the same time. But I mean, like Damien said, this whole interview's been great. I feel like we could go for days. But one things I wanted to touch on, just because you mentioned it a couple times, was when you were coming up to the UFC, there was no route in place. There were a couple plans you could do, but you weren't willing to do that. You wanted to do it your way. As you're transitioning now into the later stage, I mean, obviously you're fighting, but like Damien said, transitioning into coaching, how does it feel knowing that you've been able to go in, establish yourself, take those short notice fights, build your reputation with the matchmakers, and now be able to pass that on to some of your students at your gym and help by making it an easier path than you may have had when you were coming up?
Especially at the UFC level, it's not like, I mean, it seems like such a big company, but they don't really have a whole lot of different employees. Usually when you're at these fights, coaching or fighting and stuff, you're seeing the same people over and over. So not only how you fight, but how you conduct yourself is very big, because word travels fast. There isn't a lot of them. You start to be unprofessional or hard to work with, missing weight and a problem type person. Not only are you going to shoot yourself down, but for me, I could shoot my whole team down. So for me, it's been really important for me as I burst through that door to like present myself well, so that when Montel was getting close, like they give him the opportunity, that he deserves and stuff. And then when he comes through, it's good for the next person. So that's another thing that we are big about at our gym, is just making sure that, hey, this isn't just you. Like, don't fuck it up for the next person, because you're all wearing the Pura Vida logo. So, fight hard, finish your fights, and act like a professional.
I didn't even think about that aspect of it, representing your whole team, because I guess that's something in life that I've always applied to, but I've never really thought of it that way, the way that you put it. You're representing your team. Like, I mean, if I go out and act a fool, I represent how my mother raised me. You know what I mean? So that I always try to present myself better. But then when you're representing your entire team and people that they want this for their lifestyle, and you potentially could ruin it for them. And they haven't even met those guys yet. That's
Exactly.
another level of pressure that I wouldn't even understand how to deal with. And that's just, I mean, experience. One more thing that you're going to be able to tell your guys about. But I guess when you were getting ready for a lot of your fights, when a lot of those things were happening, did you hear about certain guys that were like, "Oh no, we're never going to call that guy back"? And I'm not asking you to name names or anything, but like, did you see any examples of guys that like got to that point and then just like, you know what I mean?
I'm not going to say names, but you can just look at, anytime the UFC releases people, and if you're like scratching your head and you're like, but he didn't really, like, he was doing pretty well. Like, there's way worse guys that are doing worse, but they're still on the roster. Like, why? It's because of, if there's somebody on the roster that you're like, man, they're giving this guy another fight, like, shouldn't he be cut by now? It's probably because he's a really good dude, easy to work with, and that is it. Maybe he's got some, training partners or something that are on the UFC roster,
Yeah.
and like they're like his, like they hear stories of how much of a team player and a leader this guy is, and they give him that little extra opportunity because they know like he's a solid dude,
So
So
don't be a douchebag.
Yeah.
Don't.
yeah, yeah.
Man.
Okay. Yeah.
The UFC, like I said, it's not a very big staff, and they're people just like us. If you rub them the wrong way, like there's so much power that Nick Maynard and Sean Shelby have with your career. Like the last person you want to do if you fight at 170, where Sean Shelby makes your matchups, is piss that guy off or rub him the wrong way or seem like a cocky asshole in front of him. Don't
Yeah.
do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Shake his hand, show respect. Fight hard, professional, and it's gonna go a long way.
I don't know if TJ actually has another question or not, but I do have one final question, and it's something that we touched on off camera. But I guess like you don't want to piss off the UFC officials, all the people that are working for them, and you want to have a good relationship with them. One of the things that I heard Justin Gaethje say recently in an interview was that he had broke his nose 12 years ago or however.
Yeah.
He's never been able to breathe right out of it, and he's waiting for Tony Ferguson to break his nose again so he can have the surgery to fix it, and the UFC has to pay for it. And I just thought that was hilarious. And I heard a little bit of a story about you where like you could be able to speak on it a little bit better. How does the surgeries and the UFC paying for it all work?
Yeah. There's been, of course, little injuries that you go into fights with and then you deal with, or luckily for me, like they've went away because they've been little stuff, and
Yeah.
big stuff that's happened during fights, like they've completely taken care of. So they do a good job of getting you appointments immediately with like some of the top doctors. Like I haven't been to any low income seeming doctors around Milwaukee. When I've had problems with my wrist or my knee, like it seems like I'm going to really, really good places with good reputations and good doctors. And there's been times where like I'll get a big ass bill in the mail because they use the insurances first, like your insurance, my health insurance, and their secondary insurance, and then try to bring that bill down. But then there's been some bills where I'm like, holy shit, like what do I do with this? And my manager just email it to the UFC medical staff. So I do, and I'm like, yeah, sorry, like this bill came in. I don't know how you want me to handle this. It's like, we got it. I'm like, okay.
That's one of the things that I do love, that they take care of you guys, or at least, I mean, they did for you.
With fight-related injuries, of course, it's been all good. So happy about that. I completely blew up my left knee, and I had torn PCL, torn meniscus that flapped over, and slight tear in my ACL. And right now, I mean, it's been a little over a year since it happened, but it feels maybe better than my right one. So
Man.
Man.
Well,
So-
that That's all
If-
stuff to hear. Sorry, TJ. I know.
Oh
You
no,
talk.
like you said, great stuff to hear. But I mean, with me hearing that, my reporter hat comes back on, and with the news of everything going on, and obviously the ball getting rolling again. How soon are you from trying to put your name in there and get back into the cage?
Yeah, so there was a article that was put out that's saying like I was released or whatever, and I like called my manager right away. I'm like, wait, what's this, fucking article about? And he's like, you're not released, like you're out of contract for a long time, so people just assume that you've been released. But I am out of contract, but I've been out of contract before. I was out of contract after my first 4 fights. So when I took that Mike Pyle fight in Vegas, I was a free agent at that point. I was just given another contract when the fight came up that I was supposed to have. So I'm kind of in that situation again. It's just been longer because, like I said, I had the knee. So I didn't have the surgery till April. It took me a good amount of time to get back in fight shape and ready to go. And then we bought a new building that we moved our gym to. So we didn't just move the gym. We bought a commercial building and then moved the gym there. So we had a ton of like renovating and painting and getting new mats and all that kind of stuff. So that kept me busy for a little, 2 or 3 months. Like if I wasn't teaching a class, I was over here like with a paint roller in my hand. And then
I've seen some of the videos.
yeah, you saw the demo one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh man.
yeah. And then this COVID thing hit. So, but with this happening, it could be an opportunity to jump in there. So I got to somehow work out and stay ready. And they're trying to get these events going as soon as possible. And if they're going to have a hard time bringing in fighters from other countries with travel bans and stuff, and there are a lot of prima donnas in the UFC that 10, 12 weeks to get ready for a fight or something. That just give me like two weeks, I'm good to go. The key is like, because of coaching, I'm in the gym. So whereas most people, they might go way down and then they got to bring themselves back up to fight shape, it could take 10 to 12 weeks. But if you're always at a certain point, to get to fight shape is only a little bit.
Oh, and that is somebody who's truly trying to fight him up the front.
Yeah. That's a professional at the highest level. So, I mean, this has been a blast. I'm going to go ahead and just jump the gun and let the fans know that I'm already excited for part 2 that hasn't been agreed to yet, but I feel like there's so much more to go into. But before we do wrap it up here tonight, Zach, I always like to give a platform just to thank any teammates, sponsors, anybody outside the gym, anything like that. The time is yours, sir.
Of course, want to thank all my training partners and coaches here at Pura Vida. Wouldn't be anywhere without them. But as I'm sitting here, I just got this awesome art of sport.
Hell yeah.
It's a pretty cool display. I'm going to spend just a hot second on this. Look at that. They got everything. Deodorant, antiperspirant, body wash, shampoo, which I don't need because I got a COVID haircut, but maybe in the future. I don't know if you saw my sexy little shower scene that I did on Instagram, but if you haven't, please check that out at Zak Ottow. Okay. That's it, guys. Thanks, Iridium.
Get out now.
My managers. Jake.
Yeah. Oh man.
There he is.
Hey. His beard is looking thick as hell right now. I'm sorry, I don't know if I just cut out or not. Anyway, people watching this video, like this video, subscribe to Trash Talk with Damien and TJ, except everyone should hate TJ, and still subscribe to the channel though.
Don't be a hoe.
Thanks for having me anytime.